present our latest work as G-Miner. And G-Miner is a system which is designed for conducting interactive visual group mining on multivariate data, multivariate graphs. This work is collaborated with Professor Yu Li from University of Pittsburgh and Liangyue Li and Hanghang Tong from Arizona State University. So I will first, in this talk, I will first introduce what is the interactive group mining. So after that, I will also introduce the challenges in this problem. Then followed by the detailed visualization and interaction designs, and also we will discuss some evaluation methods for our system. So the first question is, what is a multivariate graph? So graph data structure has been widely used in many application domains. For example, the enterprise social network can be represented in a graph. So in this example, nodes represent the employees and the relationships between edges represent relationships between these employees. So in this this graph captures the topology of the data atoms. However, more and more applications require to take in node attributes into consideration as well. So in the previous enterprise social network data, for example, the employees may have their own expertise described in a feature vector whose value indicates the user skills in different areas such as KI, visualization, and so on. So in this way, this graph data actually capture both the topology information as well as the node attribute information. So this kind of graph in the visualization area is called a multivariate graph. So cluster analysis actually is one of the most important tasks for both the ordinary graph and the multivariate graph data. It helps to group those most related data atoms together and find communities in a social network, for example. So, however, traditional cluster analysis methods is a kind of a fully automated procedure, which means once the number of clusters is given, the algorithm will compute to find the clusters automatically without any supervision by analyzers. So this procedure is difficult to be customized. So the challenge here is that how can we find desired groups supervised by users based on users' requirements for certain purpose in a multivariate graph? So to tackle this problem, we have introduced a technique called group mining. So group mining actually is a technique to find a group in a multivariate graph that is has a fixed number of data atoms, and have a desired attributes, and also have the desired structures. So we have developed advanced algorithms as well as visual analysis systems. So this algorithm has been published in 3W 2015. And in this paper, we will only focus on the visual analysis system part. So let's think about the following scenario about group mining. So suppose in a big company, a manager wants to build a temporary team for a project. So the manager may have some requirements about the team. For example, he only has 10 high counts, which means this limits the size of the team. And also he may also want the team members have complementary skills so that they can collaborate with each other smoothly. And finally, the team should contain, maybe the team should follow in some special structures so that facilitate the management. So all these are user requirements. So in this scenario, actually, enterprise social network data is used. However, this data has some privacy issues that we cannot publish in our paper. So instead, we use a very similar data set as our running example. We extract the co-author graph from paper data set. And this graph contains over 100,000 researchers as nodes and over 400,000 edges indicating co-authorship of these researchers. So inside this data, actually, each researcher is represented by a 7-dimensional expertise vector indicating their skills in different areas. Actually, researchers' expertise is estimated based on their number of publications in the corresponding area. And here we use different colors to represent different research areas. For example, the blue indicates data mining, and gray indicates visualization. So in the rest of this talk, I'm going to use this data in all our examples. So in terms of visual analysis, we have developed a web-based user interface that integrates multiple visualization components together. So for example, we introduced a hierarchical explorer, a group explorer, and a candidate explorer. I will show you how these views are used later. So based on this web-based interface, we can have interactive group mining. And so we are able to conduct interactive group mining actually in 2 steps. The first step actually, the user trying to find an initial group. And once this initial group is identified, they can edit and refine this group based on their requirements until they find the desired group at last. To do such kind of interactive visual analysis, actually we are facing 2 major challenges. The first is that how can we design a visualization to represent a large-scale multivariate graph as well as corresponding groups inside this graph. And the second is that how can we design a set of interactions that is a kind of helping us to do this kind of interactive group mining. To address the first challenge, we propose many advanced visualization designs. First, we design and develop the visualization to represent large-scale multivariate data. Here, to deal with a large data set, we have used a hierarchical graph visualization design. So in this design, we conduct a bottom-up hierarchical clustering analysis on the input multivariate graph. And the cluster result is visualized in 2 different visualization components. The hierarchy information has been directly visualized in an icicle tree view. And in terms of the multivariate graph itself will be visualized level by level in a graph explorer in forms of hierarchically packed circles. So for example, in this 3-level hierarchy, and the root of the hierarchy is represented as a background circle here, and it contains 3 intermediate circles, which indicates the 2nd-level clusters in the hierarchy, and the leaf nodes represent the row nodes in the original multivariate graph, which is directly visualized here. So along this hierarchy, users can zoom in and zoom out to navigate through the entire graph data set. And so when zooming into the bottom level, the detailed attribute values of each node in the multivariate graph is visualized in a pie chart node glyph. So here we use different colors to indicate different types of the features. And the radius of each pie slice encodes absolute feature values. And the angle of each pie slice encodes the normalized attribute value, showing the portion when comparing to another attribute values. So this is how we visualize a multivariate graph. And the next question is that how can we visualize a group inside the multivariate graph? So we have developed several iconic views and which are switchable via interactions to represent different aspects of this group in the multivariate graph. So the first view is called a snippet view, and this design this view is designed to capture the group's innate topology. So this design consists of 2 parts. An outer ring chart summarizes the mean attribute value of the group's containing nodes. And the inner graph indicates the group's topology. And finally, the color of each node indicates the node's dominant attributes. So the second view is called a relational map. So actually, relational map is another matrix visualization. And we already introduced a lot of matrix in this session. So however, this time we also use a matrix, adjacency matrix, to represent the substructures of the group. And surrounding this matrix, actually, we use bar charts, bars to represent groups group members' dominant attributes and the corresponding values. Again, this matrix can be reordered based on different ways. For example, they can be reordered based on members or relationships, or they can also reorder based on dominant attributes. So different reordering methods will show in different visual patterns sometimes. And the final view is called a feature map. And the feature map actually is a heat map. So each row represents a member in the group. And each column represents a certain kind of feature of these members. And the color opacity of the feature cells, of the heat map cells, illustrating the corresponding feature value. So as a summary, in our visualization designs, we have using a hierarchical-based approach to visualize a large graph data. And we have used a pie chart glyph to represent the attributes in a multivariate graph. And also, we have developed 3 different views, trying showing different aspects of a group. So the next, we will introduce the interaction designs in our system. So actually, we have developed a set of interactions to support the group mining procedure. So recall this procedure actually contains 2 steps. 2 major steps. The first step is that the user will find initial groups. Actually, they can do this via different approaches. The first approach that they can do is that they can directly select a cluster as the initial group, as shown in this video, as shown in this demo. So suppose we want to find a group of researchers which is in the area of multimedia. So here the multimedia is visualized in green. So we just focusing on those green clusters, keep zooming into this cluster level by level, and then finally we reach the bottom of the level and select a group of researchers who are in this area. So as our initial group. So for example, this is a group of researchers which we can be used as our initial group. So this level by level zooming sometimes is very time-consuming when the hierarchy is very deep. So another try is that actually you can directly click on those intermediate nodes in the hierarchical explorer to directly load the subgraphs under the certain structure. So the second approach for doing finding the initial group is just directly by query. For example, I just query myself. So in this way, the system will load an ego network of my ego network. So this ego network actually can be used as an initial group. And the third way is the most interesting way. Actually, we can directly draw a group based on the template provided by our system. For example, in this demo, we use the star template. So added the topology of the star template based on our requirements. We also added on those node attributes based on our requirements. We keep editing those nodes. Keep editing, and we just change the value of the attributes, the researcher's expertise. So these nodes are all the virtual nodes currently because it's from a template. So once after the editing step, we will conduct a group. Group mining. We will run the group mining algorithm in the background. So the algorithm is going to give us the best fit of this group. It's trying to search the whole data set and find the best match match of the graph that best fit the template. So for example, this can be used as our initial groups. And the second step, after the initial graph is identified, we just refine the initial group iteratively based on our requirements in the second step. So the second step, the first interaction we design is we just allow users to aggregate any parts of the subgraph in an initial group so that we can select the most important part that we want. And we can also switch to different views to investigate this part. And Next, we also developed the interaction to replace the unqualified group members by some qualified members in an initial graph. For example, in this Eagle network, we want to replace this researcher to find a better one who has a better connection to another team members. To do that, we just draw some virtual links to connect this node to another members in the team. Oops, sorry. My PPT is crashed. Sorry about that. The system is too heavy. So this one. Oh, sorry. So let me quickly do this. So when we are doing this, and we just click the replace button, the algorithm will rank out a set of related candidates, so that maybe we can choose the best candidate as our refined team. And this refined team will be used for the next round of refinement. So let's keep doing this iteratively. That's the idea of this group mining system. So in terms of evaluation, so actually we developed this system by closely work with several domain experts. We actually worked out 3 prototypes. The first prototype, we just generate this prototype-based suggestions on 2 domain experts. Then we conduct a pilot study with 220 users and collect their feedbacks, and then produce the second prototype and do another round of domain expert interview and collect another round of feedbacks, and significantly improved our system and creating the third prototype. And finally, in the final interview with the domain expert, the expert just kind of satisfied with our current functionality. They also provide many suggestions and comments which are going to be our future work. So the whole procedure has been lasted for almost 1 year. So as a conclusion, so we introduced what is interactive group mining, and we also introduced our visual analysis system, and we also developed, introduced our evaluation and development procedure. And thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for one short question. I'm Bing Gui, a researcher of Seoul National University. I have one short question. When you categorize or grouping on a small group or multivariate group, there are other components like others or miscellaneous. How you deal with the small components like miscellaneous in the grouping or categorizing in your system?
So do you mean the disconnected components in the graph?
Yeah, such kind of things.
Oh, yes.
For example, indirect human resources in the team. Like.
So yeah, actually, so currently those disconnected components are isolated from others. So we just treat them as independent teams in our data set. So if you query on a certain name inside that team, you can load that data into our system. However, usually we will not access to those part of data because they are disconnected from the major components.
And they are not exempted from the group in
yeah.
the brochure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for it.